Hi, my name is Jackson Gallagher, and today I'm going to be discussing with you emotions and how they affect our communication. So, first, I'm going to need to define emotions for us. Emotions are our initial reactions to physiological, cognitive, and social stimuli and experiences. And then, when we interpret our emotions, they transform into feelings that we feel for longer periods of time, and that shapes how we communicate with others. Okay, now in understanding our emotions, there's two main perspectives we need to approach our emotions with to understand them. From your personal perspective, how am I feeling and how do I know that? This allows you to assess your immediate response to whatever experience you're in. You allow yourself time to interpret your emotions and how you're feeling and respond appropriately. Excuse me. And then you need to approach it from the other party's perspective. Excuse me. How is the other party in this situation feeling, and how do you know this? This allows you to step out of your own shoes, analyze another's perspective, and realize you are not the only important part of this social experience. The other party that you're interacting with has feelings, has thoughts, has emotions, has a moral standpoint, and you need to address that as well, because you don't want to leave all of your social experiences only satisfying yourself. Otherwise, you will never be able to build strong relationships. So it's important to understand and appreciate others' perspectives to make each party compromise and come to a common ending of your relationship or social experiences. Next, we have our primary emotions that reflect and demonstrate themselves in our communication is happiness, anger, fear, sadness, disgust, and joy. All of these are felt throughout the days and weeks. Any day-to-day we can experience all of these or a minimum number of these emotions, and they easily affect how we respond and how we communicate with others based on our experiences. Okay, now we need to look at the way that our brain reacts to emotions and how we respond and take action based off of the stimuli that we intake. We have our fast track circuit, which is basically we respond immediately off the cuff. As soon as we feel these emotions, something just clicks and we do it. This doesn't allow us to analyze our emotions, and the example I like to give when discussing this topic is when you get cut off when you're driving on the highway by some other driver who's being reckless. You feel fear because it's a sudden surprise to you. You feel angry because you're like, why is this person doing this to me? It put me in danger. So you immediately hit the horn out of anger. You might say an expletive or two at the person because you were acting immediately off of your feelings and emotions. Whereas if you allow the slow track circuit of your brain to analyze your emotions, you will go through a more thorough thought process before responding to the stimuli that you intake. In that same example, instead of immediately hitting the horn, if you allow yourself to think, that person cut me off, that was rude. However, if I act aggressively, that's only going to put me in further danger. Let's say I honk and then I stop. I'm going to ride right on this person. I'm going to be very close. I'm going to tail them to show them that I am upset. That only puts you in danger because if the car in front of you, for whatever reason, has to suddenly brake, you have now decreased the distance between your cars, and you will not be able to react before you hit them if they suddenly brake. Then when the police investigate the situation, you are at fault because you hit them because you were following too closely. So these are the two ways that our brain works to interpret emotions and the two ways that we reply to our physical stimuli. Sorry about this diagram being a little blurred out. Let me see if I can get that focus there. Okay, here's our hormones and neurotransmitters that affect our emotions and communication. We have 5 main hormones that I want to discuss. Dopamine, which is our pleasure hormone. Serotonin, which is our mood hormone. Oxytocin, which also affects mood, and something I won't get into, it affects childbirth, but that's a topic for another presentation. Then we have epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are our flight or fight responses, or our rest and digest responses. And then cortisol, which is heavily involved in stress. So we have some main moods here. Happiness and love, which are affected by dopamine and serotonin because those are our positive mood hormones. We have oxytocin, which does affect our pleasure senses, so it affects our feelings and thoughts when we're in love. You have epinephrine, which is quantified or termed adrenaline. It spikes our heart rate, our blood pressure. It allows our muscles to contract quickly with a lot of strength to be applied to this fight or flight responses. And then you have norepinephrine, which is our rest and digest hormone. It allows us to slow our heart rate, calm ourselves down, and digest. But it can also make you feel stressed. Those both intertwine with each other. They affect us when we're stressed. And then we have feelings like anxiety and depression, where our hormones like dopamine and serotonin are very low. Now we have our emotional energy matrix. We have 4 main quadrants that I want to discuss. Our survival zone, which is a high energy situation, but the energy is negative because you are scared. This is the flight or fight response. You have a lot of energy, but it's not going to last long. So you won't stay in this quadrant for a very long amount of time, but it's very important to react quickly. Then we have our burnout zone down here. This is when we have a lot of negative energy and we're low on energy. Let's say you've been at a stressful job for weeks or months, and eventually you just get to the point where you cannot keep working without taking a vacation because you're burnt out and you just can't take it anymore. Then we have our more positive energy states. We have our performance zone, which is high energy and positive energy. Similar to the survival zone, high energy doesn't last for a long period of time, but you are feeling great. You are just feeling very positive, and it doesn't last for a long time, but it's a very high high. And then we have a recovery zone to where we've cooled down and dropped our energy levels from a performance zone, but we are still feeling good, just at a lower intensity. So we move throughout these zones up and down, left to right, depending on the situations that we are placed in. Okay, now applying some reason to our emotions, we have some questions that we need to ask to shape how we respond based off of our emotions in these social experiences. Some questions we can ask are, how am I currently feeling? What action can I take in response to my emotional reaction? What effect is my reaction going to have on others? What alternatives can I take? And those two really go hand in hand because when you address and think of how your response affects others and the alternatives, you can kind of address those into your moral compass and decide, do these reactions fit within my moral compass when I'm calm, or would these reactions be outside of what I would deem normally okay? Once again, this is allowing your slow track circuit of your brain to analyze your feelings and provide a response that you aren't going to later regret. And lastly, who can you turn to for advice? Who can provide you with a good way of approaching your feelings? And that's kind of appropriate for this slide here. We have actions that we can take to manage our emotions, analyze our thoughts and feelings, and like I said throughout the presentation, provide a thorough and thought out response. One of them is talking with others, whether that be a therapist, friend, family, or what have you. It's very important that we don't internalize all of our emotions because a lot of times, especially with negative emotions, they can bottle up and build up over time, and that's a very negative thing. We also have exercise, which, like I talked about with our hormones, exercise promotes energy, serotonin, dopamine. You feel better, you feel healthier, you sleep better after exercising. It's very important in promoting positivity. Other things you can do are distracting yourselves from stressful situations, building positive reoccurring habits that constantly provide you with positive feelings. You want to be in a positive emotional state for extended periods of time. And in conclusion, 4 main points that I want to discuss. Big things in addressing your emotions and how they manipulate your responses are, you want to recognize your strengths and weaknesses. What are you good at and what are you bad at? When you are feeling these initial reactions, these initial emotions, what do you do well in these situations and what do you do poorly and how can you improve? And these kind of go in tandem with the next 2 points. You need to control your anger and fear, and you need to find ways to calm yourselves, because more often than not, the emotions of anger and fear are what cause you to react and respond in social situations very negatively and do something that you end up regretting. So that's why it's so important to calm yourself, because it allows you to get off of that fast track circuit into the slow track circuit, where you can analyze your emotions before responding off of fear and anger. You allow yourself to calm down, and you provide a more appropriate response that doesn't involve a very high emotional intensity, and your responses that you will regret. And lastly, just to reiterate, you got to utilize others' point of view. In a lot of these situations, you are not the only party that is taking place. Social interactions require more than one person, two people at least, and you're not the only important part of the discussion. So thank you for listening to my presentation. Have